Have you ever been just having a perfectly normal, peaceful day?
Oh, yeah, the best kind of days.
Right. Maybe you're just sitting on the couch, scrolling through your phone, or you're at your desk checking your morning emails, and suddenly you see it.
The dreaded comment.
Exactly. It might be like a cold, sarcastic remark from a colleague about a project you worked really hard on.
Yeah.
Or, maybe it's a super harsh, dismissive comment from a complete stranger online.
Which happens entirely too often.
It really does. And logically, your brain immediately tells you, I shouldn't care about this. This person doesn't even know me. This doesn't matter.
Right. Your rational mind tries to step in.
Yeah. But almost instantly, your stomach tightens. Your heart starts to race. Your palms might even get a little sweaty. And suddenly, your entire day is, it's completely derailed by just a handful of words.
It's a really profound disconnect, isn't it? I mean, your rational mind is saying one thing, but your physical body is reacting as if you're under a literal physical attack.
It really is. And, welcome to today's deep dive. We are so glad you are here with us to explore this.
We really are. Today, our mission is to explore a fascinating concept called filtering the noise.
Filtering the noise.
Right. We're going to look deeply at the psychology behind exactly why we absorb these harsh words so intensely. And, more importantly, we're going to explore how to construct an invisible linguistic shield to protect your peace of mind.
I love that. And because we know a lot of you listening around the world are working on mastering your English, we are going to take our time today.
Absolutely. We'll keep our pace warm, clear, and, very conversational.
Yeah, we want to make sure these concepts are super accessible. So when we explore a particularly powerful phrase or a helpful new vocabulary word, we'll naturally just let it breathe.
We really want you to be able to grasp these ideas and actually use these tools in your everyday life.
Exactly. So, let's unpack this. Why do words hurt us physically?
That's the big question.
Yeah. When you receive what the research calls a verbal arrow, meaning a weapon made entirely of words, let's say that one clearly, a verbal arrow.
A verbal arrow, right.
So when that hits you, your body reacts as if you were just chased by a predator. You get that fast heartbeat, that tight stomach, and then you get stuck in that dreaded cognitive loop.
Oh, everyone knows that loop.
Right. You replay the phrase in your head for days.
Yeah.
You're analyzing every single syllable. Why does our nervous system do this to us?
Well, to understand the why, we really have to look at how our brains evolved. I mean, for our ancient ancestors, survival depended entirely on belonging to the group.
Because if you were alone, you were in trouble.
Exactly. If you were rejected by your tribe, you were exiled. And exile essentially meant, you wouldn't survive.
Wow. So it was literally life or death.
It was. So our brains evolved to view social rejection as a life or death threat. When someone shoots a verbal arrow at you today, your amygdala, which is the alarm center of your brain, it doesn't know the difference between a sarcastic email and a physical threat.
It just signals danger.
Right. It just hits the panic button.
That makes so much sense. It's basically a false alarm of our survival system.
Exactly.
But the sources we're looking at today go even deeper, especially regarding people who feel things very intensely. They describe this vulnerable state as having a mind that is like a body with, quote, no skin.
No skin. That's a powerful image.
Yeah, every little breeze, every tiny drop of negativity, it just stings directly.
Yes. And this brings us to a psychological concept closely tied to what we call highly sensitive persons, or HSPs. It's known as the emotional sponge effect.
The emotional sponge. Let's make sure we highlight that one. Emotional sponge.
Right. So if you have a highly developed sensitive nervous system, you don't just read the surface level text of a message.
You read between the lines.
You do. You don't just hear the basic definition of the words spoken to you. You actually absorb the hidden anxiety, the unspoken anger, and the underlying malice behind those words.
Wow. The emotional sponge. That is such a vivid image. Think about a dry sponge left sitting out on a kitchen counter.
Okay, yeah, picture that.
That sponge does not get to choose what it soaks up, right? If you spill clean, warm water near it, it absorbs it.
Naturally.
But if someone comes along and spills toxic, dirty, emotionally polluted water right next to it, the sponge just absorbs that all automatically, too. It takes on the shape and the weight of whatever is around it.
That is a brilliant analogy. And, in psychological terms, the reason that sponge is just sitting exposed on the counter is because it lacks a verbal boundary.
Verbal boundary.
Exactly. A verbal boundary is the protective container you put around your mind. Without it, we essentially take other people's emotional garbage, soak it into our own mental sponge, and then, and here's the truly tragic part,
Uh-oh.
we use their garbage as proof that we aren't good enough.
Oh, wow. So we actually weaponize their bad mood against ourselves. We do their work for them.
Precisely. We do the damage to ourselves. And the result of that is total overwhelm. You feel buried by the weight of emotions that don't even belong to you.
Overwhelm. That's a great vocabulary word for our listeners. Overwhelm. It's that feeling of just being buried.
Right. And identifying this feeling is really the first step to changing it. We're dealing with pure, unhelpful interference, which we can just call noise.
Noise. Just static.
Exactly. And when that noise hits an exposed emotional sponge, the result is that paralyzing overwhelm.
You know, when I catch myself in that cycle, I find it really helpful to just name what's happening. I try to tell myself, I am taking things too personally.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah, let's say that one again for the listeners to practice. I'm taking things too personally. Just recognizing it really helps.
It really does.
Yeah.
Naming the state pulls you out of it. Another great way to frame it is to admit to yourself, I act like an emotional sponge, absorbing everyone's negativity.
Oh, I like that. I act like an emotional sponge, absorbing everyone's negativity.
Right, because when you admit that to yourself, you suddenly realize that if it's an action, well, it's something you actually have the power to stop doing.
Which brings us to the next massive step.
Uh-huh.
We know why we automatically absorb negativity. The survival brain is scanning for threats, the counter is dry, and the sponge is exposed.
Exactly.
But how do we transition to a daytime defense strategy? Like, how do we actually change how we process incoming language? Here's where the research gets really interesting.
It really does, because it flips our understanding of communication completely upside down. The core mind-bending concept here is that words only have the power to hurt us because we subconsciously agree to their definitions.
Wait, we agree to be heard. I mean, that sounds completely counterintuitive.
It does, but in a psychological sense, yes. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
If someone walks right up to you on the street and yells, "You are a giant purple alien," you aren't going to go home and cry.
I mean, no, I just think they were completely out of their mind.
Right. You aren't going to lose sleep over it. Why? Because you absolutely do not agree with that definition. You know for a fact you aren't a purple alien.
Yeah, exactly. The verbal error just bounces off because there's no crack in your armor for it to enter.
Precisely. But if someone says, "You did a terrible job on this," and you already secretly fear that you're inadequate, well, you agree with the premise of their insult.
Oh, I see. You think, oh no, they noticed my flaw.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is when the verbal arrow hits.
Yeah.
So, to stop this, our sources introduce the 90-10 rule of the linguistic shield.
The linguistic shield. Let's make sure our listeners get that one. A linguistic shield.
The linguistic shield.
So we are literally using language and logic to block other people's toxic language. How does this 90-10 rule work in practice?
So the rule states that 90% of what someone says to you, especially when it's said in anger or, frustration, it reflects their own personal character, their own history, and their own inner chaos.
Wow, 90%.
Yes. Only 10% is actually related to objective facts about you. This happens because of a psychological mechanism called projection.
Projection. So basically offloading their own stress onto me.
Exactly. When people feel internally uncomfortable or insecure or just out of control, their brain tries to relieve that pressure by attacking someone else. So we have to contrast our two modes of thinking, sponge mode versus shield mode.
Okay, let's look at sponge mode first. In sponge mode, if your boss says, this work is a disaster, you are always so careless, you instantly translate that subjective opinion into a fact.
Right, you take it as absolute truth.
Yeah, you think I am a bad person, I am a failure. Or maybe you just sense a friend's impatience at dinner and your sponge mode immediately wonders, did I say something wrong? Is it my fault they're unhappy?
Or, you see internet trolls leaving nasty comments on a video you posted, and your sponge mode uses their projected anger as a reason to feel inferior.
Right, but then we switch to shield mode.
Yes, shield mode.
In shield mode, you recognize that criticism as a subjective opinion. Let's emphasize those. Fact versus opinion. And subjective.
Great words to know. It's based on their feelings, not an objective, measurable fact.
Yeah, you identify that friend's impatience at dinner as simply their baggage. Maybe they didn't sleep well, maybe they're stressed about money, but it has absolutely nothing to do with you.
And those malicious internet trolls. In shield mode, you recognize that people who are happy and fulfilled, they do not spend their time leaving cruel comments on the internet.
They really don't.
So you treat their words as mere ambient noise. It's just background static like traffic outside your window. It can be completely filtered out without ever needing your emotional response.
I want to push back on this a little bit, though.
Okay, go for it.
Because if I'm being perfectly honest, it is really easy to sit here in a calm studio and talk about filtering out the noise. But if someone is standing right in front of me, raising their voice, and maybe they're angry about a mistake I genuinely did make.
Right, the 10% fact.
Yeah, my heart rate is going to spike. How do I magically separate fact from opinion when my nervous system is screaming at me and there is actually some truth to what they're saying?
That is a very fair point. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is difficult at first. That's why it's called an active mental filter. You aren't magically ignoring reality.
Okay.
When someone is yelling about a mistake, you use the 90-10 rule to separate the data from the drama.
Oh, I like that. The data from the drama.
Right. The 10% fact, the data is, I made a typo in the report. You can accept that and fix it.
Sure.
The 90% drama, the yelling, the tone, the implication that you're incompetent, that is their inability to regulate their own emotions. That is the subjective noise you filter out.
So you're consciously building that verbal boundary.
Exactly. You are actively pausing your brain and saying, hold on, where is the fact here? And where is just their emotional baggage?
Okay, I see. So it's a muscle you have to build over time. It's an ongoing internal battle of fact versus opinion. When I feel that emotional overwhelm creeping in, I try to remind myself, that is your opinion, not my reality.
That really is a powerful boundary to set.
Let's repeat that for our listener. That is your opinion, not my reality.
It creates immediate emotional distance. It reminds you that they are looking through their own distorted lens.
And another phrase that helps reinforce that shield is just stating your intention. I am filtering out the emotional noise.
Yes.
Just repeating that. I am filtering out the emotional noise. It reminds your brain that you don't have to process every single thing that is thrown at you.
So that is your daytime defense. That is your active linguistic shield while you're out in the world interacting with colleagues, friends, and, the unpredictable nature of the internet.
But what happens when the sun goes down?
The nighttime.
Because we all know that the daytime shield takes a lot of active cognitive energy. And when you're busy, it's easier to maintain. But we need to move from the theoretical daytime defense to the highly practical, vulnerable reality of your everyday life.
It gets harder at night.
It really does. What do you do when it's 2:00 a.m., the house is completely quiet, your daytime shield has slipped because you're exhausted, and you're staring at the ceiling, losing sleep over something harsh that was said earlier that day?
This raises an incredibly important question about how we process and heal. Nighttime is difficult because the distractions are gone.
Yeah, it's just you and your thoughts.
Exactly. Your defenses are lowered, and your brain is left alone with what it perceives as a social threat. To counter this, the sources provide a beautifully structured 3-step late-night mindfulness ritual.
A 3-step ritual.
Right. And this ritual is designed to give you emotional immunity.
Emotional immunity. Let's highlight that vocabulary. Emotional immunity. It's just like a vaccine for your feelings, right? Teaching your system how to fight off the virus of negativity.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Let's walk through these 3 steps. Step 1 is separating fact versus noise.
Yes. In step 1, you lie in bed, and you visualize the hurtful phrase. Write it down in your mind as if it's written on a blank whiteboard. Then you step back and ask yourself coldly and analytically, is there any objective fact here?
And if the answer is no, which it almost always is when someone is just lashing out with insults, you realize it's just pure noise.
Yeah.
The sources suggest imagining literally pressing a mute button on a remote control.
I love that visualization.
Yeah, you see their mouth moving, but the sound is just gone. Click.
Which leads to step 2, which is all about cognitive closure. We call it return to sender.
Return to sender, another great phrase to practice. Return to sender.
I have always found this step challenging, honestly, because my instinct is usually to try to fix the problem or, figure out why they are mad rather than just returning it.
That's very common for an emotional sponge. But the visual the sources use here is brilliant. You imagine packaging their emotional, angry words into a physical parcel, a heavy cardboard box. And you say to them, in your mind, this is your anger, not my responsibility. I'm returning it to you.
You leave their baggage outside your door. It does not belong inside the architecture of your mind.
It's exactly like getting a misdelivered package from the post office.
Oh, so.
Well, imagine this delivery driver knocks on your door and hands you a box. You look at it and it's ticking and it's leaking this horrible green toxic sludge.
Yikes.
Right. You wouldn't open that box and put it in the center of your living room. You'd look at the label, realize it has the wrong name on it, and you would hand it right back to the driver. Not mine. Take it away.
That visual is precisely what the brain needs to process the rejection of that negativity. Your brain responds strongly to physical metaphors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
By visualizing or returning the box, you are refusing delivery of their toxic sludge. You're telling your nervous system that the threat is gone. And once you've returned the package, you move to the final step. Step 3. Anchor your own truth.
Anchor your truth. You have to actively redefine yourself because you've just rejected their definition. You remind yourself that other people's labels have absolutely no legal or moral effect on your life.
None at all.
They don't magically change who you are just because they spoke a word into the air.
The practice here is to establish your mind as a sacred space.
A sacred space. Let's make sure that's clear. Sacred space.
A protected, private area where only you get to decide what belongs. You literally breathe into your heart space. Acknowledge your own kindness. Acknowledge your own effort. Remind yourself that you do not need to prove your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you.
You are sealing the borders so they can't breach your peace. Breach, meaning to break through. So, to recap the journey we've taken today, we've gone from being an unprotected emotional sponge, absorbing everyone's underlying stress, to understanding the psychology of why it hurts.
Right.
We've learned the 90-10 rule, recognizing that most criticism is just projection, which allows us to build our linguistic shield during the day. And now we have a late-night ritual to literally return to sender any toxic packages that try to breach our peace at night.
It is a complete mental shift. It's all about realizing that we control the borders of our own minds. We alone get to decide what is accepted as a fact and what is discarded as just noise.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to guide you through a final healing affirmation. So wherever you are right now, well, let your driving, just let your shoulders drop.
Take a slow, deep breath with us.
Let the static and the noise of the day simply fade out.
Let your breathing fall into a calm, unhurried rhythm. Imagine a soft, glowing boundary wrapping around you, pushing away the darkness and the lingering stress of the day. You are safe within this boundary.
And as you settle into that calm space, we want you to slowly and clearly recite these words with us. Keep them as an anchor. My heart is a sacred space,
I wear an invisible shield of language.
and no harsh words can breach my peace tonight. Let's put that all together as one continuous, powerful thought.
My heart is a sacred space. I wear an invisible shield of language, and no harsh words can breach my peace tonight.
Keep those words in your pocket. Use them whenever that familiar stomach tightness tries to sneak back in during your day.
But before we let you go, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought, something for you to mull over long after you finish listening to us today.
We've spent all our time today talking about how to defend yourself against the harsh words of others. We learned the 90-10 rule, that 90% of what others say reflects their own inner chaos, their own unresolved history, and their own character.
But if we know that rule is true for them, what do the casual, unfiltered words that you speak to others reveal about your own inner world?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
It is. When you let an impatient or harsh comment slip out toward a friend or stranger, what chaos inside of you is trying to speak?
It's a mirror we all have to look into eventually. So the next time you see a cold online comment and you feel that familiar tightening in your chest, remember the sponge.
Remember the shield.
Check the label on the toxic package before you accept it. And above all, protect your peace. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.